If you pruned your tomatoes last year and the harvest was smaller than you expected, I want to show you something. Not a trick, not a new fertilizer, not a special variety. Just one thing that most gardening advice has been getting wrong for decades. And it happens right now in May before the season even really starts. I grew tomatoes the same wrong way for years. Every spring I went out with my scissors, removed every side shoot I could find, kept the plants clean and single-stemmed, and told myself I was doing it right because that is what everyone said to do. The garden looked great. The harvest was always a little disappointing. I just assumed that was normal. Then one summer I got too busy to prune properly. Missed 3 weeks in a row. Some of those side shoots grew into full stems and I just left them out of embarrassment. That August I had more tomatoes than my family could eat. Bigger fruit, more of it, coming in for waves. I stood there genuinely confused because nothing else had changed. Same soil, same water, same plants. Just the scissors stayed in the shed. What I figured out after that summer is the reason most home gardeners never get the harvest their garden is actually capable of producing. And if you are planting right now or about to, this is the most useful thing you will watch this week. Before I go further, I want to be clear about one thing. Everything I am talking about today applies to indeterminate tomatoes. Those are the varieties that keep growing and producing all season long. Things like beefsteak, brandywine, most cherry tomatoes, most heirloom varieties. If you are growing bush tomatoes or compact varieties like Roma or Celebrity, those work differently, and that is a whole separate conversation. But if you are growing the tall climbing kind that needs staking and just keeps going until frost, then stay with me because this is exactly for you. So here is what is actually happening when you prune those plants. Those side shoots that everyone calls suckers are not suckers at all. That word already tells you how to feel about them before you even look at them. They are stems. Future stems with their own leaves, their own flowers, their own fruit clusters. When you remove them in May, you are not redirecting energy to the main plant. You are permanently deleting future harvest before it even gets a chance to exist. The plant had a whole plan, and you just canceled half of it with a 5-minute tidy-up session. Now think about what a tomato plant actually needs to produce well. It needs leaves, lots of them, because leaves are where all the real work happens. Every single leaf is pulling in sunlight and converting it into sugar. That sugar builds the fruit you are going to pick in August. But that same sugar also travels down into the roots and feeds them. Fed roots grow deeper and wider. Deeper roots support a bigger plant. A bigger plant produces more fruit. The whole system builds on itself through the season, but only if you give it enough leaf area to get started in the first place. A plant that gets stripped down to one stem in May is already working at a fraction of its potential by June. The root system is small because it has not been getting enough fuel from above to develop properly. And here's the part that frustrates me most about this. The plant can look completely healthy from the outside. Green, upright, clean. But underground, it is limited in a way that cannot be fixed later in the season. No amount of extra fertilizer in July solves a root system that was starved in May. The nutrients are sitting there in the soil, but the plant simply does not have the biological machinery to process them efficiently because that machinery was never allowed to develop. Now, here is something that almost never comes up in pruning advice, and I think it should. Fungal disease, blight, leaf mold, botrytis. These are the problems that end tomato seasons early across the UK, the Pacific Northwest, the Great Lakes, anywhere that gets wet summers. One of the biggest risk factors for all of them is poor airflow around the plants. And here is the irony that took me a while to see. When you strip every side shoot off to keep things tidy, you end up planting more plants per square foot because each one takes up less space. More plants packed closer together means less airflow between them. Leaves stay wet longer after rain. That moisture sitting on the foliage is exactly what fungal spores need to get started. So the pruning habit that was supposed to protect the garden actually creates the conditions for disease to spread faster. A properly spaced plant with 2 or 3 stems moves air through its canopy much better than a tight row of single stems with their leaves all overlapping at the same height. Now let me tell you what happens when July arrives and the heat turns serious. 90-degree days across much of North America. Dry spells in the UK and Canada too. A tomato plant under serious heat needs to move enormous amounts of water from the roots up through the stem and out through the leaves just to keep its own temperature stable. A single stem has a fixed capacity for how much water it can move. On a really hot day, that capacity gets maxed out, and the plant starts dropping flowers, stops setting new fruit, and development on existing fruit basically pauses. In a short growing season, losing 2 weeks in July to that kind of stress is a serious hit to your final harvest. A plant with 2 stems handles the same heat and keeps going. Flowers keep getting pollinated. Fruit keeps developing. But here's the part most people never connect. That chronic stress on a single stem plant does not just affect how much fruit you get. It affects the fruit itself. A plant that has been under stress all season produces significantly more of the ripening hormone throughout its tissues. The result is fruit that looks ripe and ready, but starts softening and deteriorating much faster after you pick it. If you have ever noticed that homegrown tomatoes from a very tightly managed garden go soft within a day or two of picking, that is not bad luck. That is the plant telling you it was stressed all season. Fruit from a relaxed, well-branched plant ripens more slowly and evenly and holds its quality for much longer after harvest. That one surprised me when I first understood it. There is also something worth understanding about how tomato plants make decisions through the season. If early June is cold and slow, they hold back a little and wait. If late August turns out warm, they can push out a second big flush of fruit. They are reading the season constantly and adjusting, but they can only do that if they have options. A multi-stem plant has multiple clusters at different stages. It has reserves. It can compensate if one part of the season is difficult. A single stem plant has none of that flexibility. One bad week in July hits the entire harvest with nothing to make up for it later. I want to be clear that I am not saying never touch your plants. Lower leaves close to the soil, leaves that are yellowing or showing early spots, those should come off through the season. They are the first place disease gets started, and removing them improves airflow near the ground. That kind of targeted pruning is genuinely useful. What causes the problem is the habit of removing every single side shoot across the whole plant from the moment it goes in the ground. The practical change is simple. It is called the 2-stem method. Let the plant grow normally until the first flower cluster appears. Just below that cluster, you will see a strong side shoot starting to form. Leave it. Let it grow into a full second stem. Remove everything below those 2, but from that point up, you let both develop completely. Stake them both. Let them flower. Let them fruit. You are running 2 productive stems through one established root system, and the difference in yield by August is not a small thing. Most gardeners who try it say the same thing afterwards. They wish they had switched years earlier. Now I know some of you have been growing tomatoes for a long time with this pruning method and getting results you are happy with. And I am not saying your garden was a failure, but there is a difference between decent results and what this plant is genuinely capable of. The tomato is one of the most productive things you can grow in a home garden. It wants to give you an enormous harvest. It has the biology to do it every single season. The only thing standing between most gardeners and that harvest is a habit that got passed down through gardening culture for generations, without anyone really stopping to question whether it was actually right. This is the time of year when it matters most. The decisions you make in the next few weeks set up everything that follows. Try the 2-stem method on half your plants this season and keep your usual approach on the other half. Watch them side by side through the summer. Compare them in August when the fruit is coming in. I think by the time you are standing in the garden with your baskets, you are going to feel exactly the same way I did that summer when I forgot to prune and accidentally had the best harvest of my life. The plants already know what to do. Sometimes the most useful thing we can do is get out of the way and let them do it.